Yeah. So Hare Krishna devotees, welcome to the Women's Day special. Today the topic is going to be Jivatma, but before we do Jivatma, we're going to talk about one more exalted personality from our scriptures. Her name is Devahuti. She is the daughter of Swayambhu Manu, and we're going to discover why she's such an exalted personality. So if we go back to Srimad Bhagavatam and go to Canto number 3 in Srimad Bhagavatam, you will come across details of who Devahuti is. So, when Garbhodakshai Vishnu is laying on the ocean, resting on Ananta Shesha, he has to begin the process of creating the first Jivatma. And the first Jivatma comes from his navel. I'm sure many of you who have visited Vishnu temples would have seen this in a picture or represented in a painting, where the Lord has a beautiful lotus flower coming from his navel, and the lotus flower beautifully blooms, and on top of that lotus flower appears Brahmaji. So the Lord created Brahmaji just like that. So like this, there are trillions and trillions of universes in this material cosmos. And in every single universe, this Garbhodakshai Vishnu is laying down. Therefore, in every single universe, there is a Brahmaji being created by Garbhodakshai Vishnu. The purpose of creating Lord Brahma is to begin the process of secondary creation. Secondary creation means now Lord Brahma has to give shape to the propagation of Jivatmas in each of the universes. So each of the Brahmas have to do this particular duty. But what happens is that, first of all, Lord Brahma doesn't know what to do. Imagine you are the first being that is ever created in your universe. Who's going to teach you? And when you are created, you are not created as a baby. You come as a full-blown adult. You didn't become a baby, you crawled around, somebody took care of you, somebody taught you. But this is not how secondary creation begins. When the Lord creates Lord Brahma is a full-fledged Jivatma. So at first, Brahma does not know what he's supposed to do. And then the Lord educates him in a heart-to-heart transmission and tells him he needs to begin the process of creation. But to begin the process of creation, it's not just you wave your hands and all the Jivatmas come into play. It requires a lot of tapas. So Brahmaji goes into deep tapas for many thousands of years until he recognizes how to begin the process of creation. So it's only after this 1,000-year or how many ever years of tapas that the Lord reveals the transcendental knowledge to him. And with that, Lord Brahma creates from his mind Manasaputra, his first 4 sons, who are called the Sanat Kumaras. And he tells them, you should spread across this universe and produce children. And they say, no, thank you. We want to be brahmacharis. We don't want to enter into grahastha life. Of course, the father is very disappointed, upset with them. But the 4 young sons say, no way. we will not do this. We want to focus on spirituality. So I'm sorry, Dad, you have to do something else. So Lord Brahma then creates Rudra from his the center of his eyebrows. And this Rudra, he's only too happy to propagate. And he creates so many Rudras that they actually destroy. They almost destroy the Brahmanda. So Brahmaji is saying, oh God, I'm creating, I'm not succeeding. The Lord has given me this seva. I'm not able to do this seva properly. I create my sons, they refused me. They don't want to follow my instructions. Then I create one more son, Rudra. He is gone out of whack. So what am I going to do? So Brahma is called Prajapati. So eventually Brahma creates many rishis, 9 of them. So the story of Devahuti is in conjunction with her husband Kardama Rishi, and more importantly, her son Kapila Rishi, who's non different than Lord Vishnu. So Kardama Muni was also a Prajapati, and he was directly born from the body of Brahma. So it was not that Brahma combined with a female. So just like the Lord produced Brahma just through his thought process, Brahma is also able to produce Jivatmas just through his body and thought process and through austerity. So eventually the population is going to come from the 9 daughters that are going to be born to Devahuti and Kardama Rishi. These daughters will marry, the 9 daughters will marry the 9 different rishis to propagate uh, humanity in the universe. So anybody who's taking the responsibility for creation of Jivatmas in Sanatana Dharma is called a Prajapati. And all these Prajapatis are sons of Lord Brahma. Brahma himself is also called Prajapati. So Brahma is working very hard to fulfill the instructions that he has received from Lord Vishnu. So through intense austerity, penance, worship, he creates these Maharishis, the 9 Maharishis. Later, he gave different parts of his bodies to these saintly rishis, and one such rishi was Kardama Muni. So now Brahma has instructed the rishis, you have to propagate. So now, in order to do that, the rishis also have to do intense tapasya. Even to produce children, you need to go into tapasya. Otherwise you'll produce all kinds of nonsense children who will not be obedient, who will not listen to you, who may be demoniac, etc. So to produce a Jivatma is not a small thing. You have to do it with a lot of devotion to the Lord. Then the child will be born a devotee. So anyway, now Kardama Muni has to do tapas. So this is in the Satya Yuga. He has to propagate. He has received instructions from his father, and he's going to follow the instructions of his father. So he takes up a severe penance to fulfill the mission given to him by his father Brahma. So Kardama Muni does this penance for 10,000 years. In Satya Yuga, your maximum lifespan was 1 lakh years. So out of that 1 lakh years, already 10,000 years are gone doing tapas. So if you have to accomplish something big, then not only is your tapas necessary, but you also need the mercy of the Lord. So when your austerity and devotion and dedication is sincere, then the Lord will also benedict you. So that means 10% of his life, Kardama Muni spent in meditation. We mentioned one of the classes that it is said that Prabhupada says that Valmiki Muni had to meditate for 60,000 years before he could write the Ramayana. To write about the Lord, you need purity of heart. So similarly, you need purity of heart to produce children, to produce pious children. So like this, Kardama Muni is meditating on the banks of the river Saraswati and being pleased with his austerity and dedication. The Lord appears on Garuda. So Lord Vishnu in his four-handed form comes. He's hovering in the sky, and Kardama Muni takes darshan of Lord Vishnu. And what can we say? Anytime a devotee sees the Lord, they just go into ecstasy. So Kardama Muni goes into ecstasy because he's taking darshan of the Lord. So he was relishing the beauty of the Lord. And the Lord began to speak. In the Bhagavatam, it is said that the Lord has a rumbling voice, a deep voice, a soothing voice. So when the Lord speaks, it's like just honey pouring into your ears. That's how beautiful it is. So as he was feasting his eyes, he was getting ready for a feast for his ears. And when the Lord spoke, it says in the Bhagavatam, when the Lord spoke, it penetrated his heart. So the Lord said, my dear Kardama Muni, I know your desire of doing this severe austerity. And I'm making arrangements to fulfill your desire. When great rishis do such intense tapas, they are actually not interested in material life. They would rather continue to worship the Lord. But sometimes when you get a seva, even though your preference is to do something else, willingly you take up that seva for the greater good of mankind. So Kardama Muni, after doing such tapas, would definitely not have been interested in getting married. So the Lord has come to encourage him. So the Lord tells him, pretty soon, Swayambhuva Manu will come and meet you here. Swayambhuva Manu is the father of Uttanapada. Uttanapada is the father of Dhruva Maharaj. So Swayambhuva Manu is going to come with his daughter Devahuti. Swayambhuva Manu is ruling this entire earthly realm. And he is going to come to offer his daughter in marriage to you. You should accept that offer. And so the Lord says, by the way, this is from a previous yuga. In our current day realm, our Manu's name is Vaivasvata Manu. So we are under the rulership of Vaivasvata Manu. It is said that in one day of Lord Brahma, 14 different Manus come and go. And one day of Brahma is, what is that? 3.4 billion earth years is one 12-hour day of Brahma. So Brahma lives for a very, very long time. So long that we can't imagine. So Brahma's lifespan is 311 trillion 40 billion earth years. That's how long Brahma lives. And if you can imagine, it's almost 311 trillion 40 billion earth years. That is 1 second for Lord Vishnu. So by the time Vishnu breathes in and breathes out, Brahma is gone. He's come and disappeared. So time is a very difficult concept to understand, how time operates. So anyway, the Lord has come. He's come to encourage Kardama Muni to accept the marriage offer for the greater good of humanity. And the Lord tells him, this daughter, Devahuti, she will be a perfect wife for you. From her, you will get 9 daughters. And these 9 daughters will get married to the 9 rishis, and together they will fill the entire creation with living entities. And then the Lord says, later on, I myself will appear in the womb of Devahuti as your dear son to teach Sankhya philosophy. And then the Lord leaves after saying this. By following my order, you will be attaining me without doubt, and you will get glorified forever. So later, the Lord returns to his abode, but as the Lord is leaving, the flapping of Garuda's wings, Kardama Muni is hearing the Samaveda tunes from Garuda's wings. And it is said that the Lord was so pleased with this austerity performed by Kardama Muni that tears fell from his eyes, and those teardrops gathered in a pond where Kardama Muni was and became a Bindu Sarovar. That Bindu Sarovar will come in the pastime soon. So just as the Lord had said, Swayambhuva Manu comes with his wife and his daughter, Devahuti. And in the Bhagavatam, the narrator is telling, I heard that once when one of the Gandharvas was flying over Swayambhuva Manu's residence, Devahuti, as a young child, was playing on the terrace. And she was so exquisitely beautiful that that Gandharva fell out of his aircraft. That's how beautiful she was. She has beautiful lotus eyes. So the king requests Kardama Muni, Swayambhuva Manu is the king. He requests Kardama Muni to kindly accept his daughter in marriage. And the conversation is actually interesting when I was reading the chapter. Swayambhuva Manu says, very rarely will an offer of marriage come unexpectedly. So when an offer of marriage comes unexpectedly, you should consider it your good fortune, and Kardama Muni, you should accept her. You cannot deny, because it's coming unasked. So Kardama Muni agrees. And so the marriage ceremony was performed as per Vedic culture. And the queen and the king give many, many gifts to their daughter, lot of jewelry, lot of gold. And after fulfilling his obligation of getting his daughter married, Swayambhuva Manu returns to his kingdom, which is known as Barhishmati. Later on in this place, Barhishmati, Varahadev appears. When Varahadev appears, one of the hair from Varahadev falls onto earth and it becomes two different types of grasses. One is called kusha grass, which is used in all of our yajnas. It is also the mat on which you're supposed to sit when you're performing any rituals, a mat made of kusha grass. So the kusha grass is supposed to contain a lot of energy. So during eclipses, you will be instructed to, to put a little bit of kusha grass in all of your pickles and your salt and your whatever tamarind, etc., because it has the potency to absorb radiation from the sun. So, one of the hairs from Varahadev fell in this Barhishmati place. Therefore, that place is considered to be very auspicious, full of peace and prosperity. And now married life begins. But married life is very, very different than the kind of life that Devahuti had led with her father. Obviously, her father was the king, so she grew up in opulence. She grew up with all kinds of conveniences and comfort. It is said that one day, when Narada Muni was glorifying Kardama Muni, Devahuti heard this glorification by Narada Muni and decided mentally, this is the person that I want to get married to. So even before she had seen her husband, she had heard about her husband and made up her mind, this is my spouse in the future. Even though she comes from a family of great wealth, you have to understand rishis lead very austere life. They are living in the forest in a simple hut. They don't need all kinds of paraphernalia and wealth, etc. So from being the daughter of a wealthy king, she moves into a hut with nothing. Yes, it is said that the parents gave a lot of wealth, but she didn't accept it. She did not utilize it. So it is said that she led a very simple life in the hermitage along with her husband. She wore clothes made of tree bark. She served her husband with all sincerity, so much so she didn't care for her own health. For many years like this, she's serving her husband. Her husband is busy with his austerities, and she pleases her husband by performing her duties and responsibilities with such sincerity. One day, Kardama Muni looks at her and realizes that Devahuti has become so thin, so weak, so pale. She's been working so hard. And he asks her, what can I do for you? Please accept a boon from me. You see, rishis are very powerful. It's not only the Lord that can give boons, even self-realized souls can give you boons. So when Devahuti is offered to request for something, her mind is thinking of only one thing. We don't have children. So she says, the promise you made was that we could have children. But you have been too busy with your tapas. So please fulfill my desire to have children. So not only that, to raise children, you need a proper place, not a little hut. Anyway, that was her mood. So Devahuti's desires are fulfilled, and Karadama Muni creates an aircraft. An aircraft that can fly anywhere in this cosmos, within that Brahmanda. So before he asks his wife to board the aircraft, that was completely filled with all kinds of jewels and opulences. He asks Devahuti, please go take a bath in that Bindu Sarovar. Once you've taken a bath, we will board the aircraft. So Devahuti enters into this pond. She goes in completely thin, weak, pale. Her hair is all completely matted because she didn't have time to take care of herself. She was taking care of her husband so nicely. Her clothes were dirty. But when she steps out of the Bindu Sarovar, she looks like her original self. Beautiful, resplendent, like an angel. But when she comes out, she doesn't come out alone. Along with her, a whole lot of maidservants come out of the Bindu Sarovar to help her. So Kardama Muni, looking at his beautiful wife, he takes her onto the aircraft along with her maids, and they travel all over the creation, including visiting a very famous forest in Svargaloka called Nandanavana. So like this, they enjoyed married life for 100 years, and they produced 9 beautiful girls. So like this, they are raising their girls. And immediately after Kardama Muni had taken her on this vacation, and they had the 9 girls, he said, the time has come for me to leave home. I need to go focus on spirituality. Imagine, what is the wife supposed to do? She has 9 young girls, and the husband is saying, sorry, I have to leave. I fulfilled my end of the bargain. Um, and now I have to leave. So hearing this, Devahuti protests. She tells Kardama Muni, there's one more obligation you have. If you leave, once these girls grow up, they will get married and each of them will depart to their respective husbands' places. Who will take care of me? So Devahuti says, you have to give me a son. I could have asked for liberation when you asked for a boon, but I did not. I asked for children. Now, when the girls grow up and go away, I need a son. So, of course, Devahuti asked it with complete humility, not in a challenging way. So Kardama Muni was very pleased with the request of Devahuti, and he tells her, your son will be the Supreme Lord himself. He is going to occupy your womb, and he is going to teach you Sankhya philosophy. So shortly thereafter, Sri Hari Vishnu enters the womb of Devahuti. And any time when the Lord comes into the material cosmos, even if he's in the womb, the Devatas are attracted to him naturally. They want to come take darshan. They couldn't see the Lord. The Lord was still in the womb. But still Brahma comes along with all the other rishis to the hermitage of Kardama Muni to pay their respects to the Lord who's inside the womb of Devahuti. So they get their 9 daughters married. So when Brahma was visiting, he instructs Kardama Muni, time has come for you to get your daughters married to the 9 rishis. So all the devatas came to witness these 9 marriages. So the 9 daughters were married to 9 sages. So one daughter by the name of Kala was married to Marichi. Another daughter by the name of Anasuya, who we talked about yesterday, married the sage called Atri. Shraddha marries Angira. Havirbhu marries Pulasti Rishi. Then Gati marries Pulaha Rishi. Kriya marries Kratu Rishi. Khyati marries Bhrigu Rishi. Arundhati marries Vashishta Rishi. And Shanti marries Atharva Rishi. So the marriage is over, the girls are gone, and Kardama Muni says, time has come for me to leave. I have fulfilled your desires. You have children, and soon you'll have the Lord as your son. Time has come for me to leave. But before Kardama Muni leaves, he prays to the Lord and he requests the Lord's permission to take up the renounced order of life and to travel around the earth and preach the glories of the Lord. Of course, when the Lord hears prayers like this, his heart is so moved, he will always say, yes, you're doing service to me, that how can I say no? So like this, Kardama Muni offers his obeisances to the Lord. The Lord is very pleased, and the Lord instructs Kardama Muni, in order to fulfill my words, I myself appeared in your house. Therefore, whatever work that you're going to do now, you do it for my pleasure and you do it as per my desire and my wish. Doing this, you will conquer death and attain immortality. And the Lord repeated and said, you will see me as the super soul in your heart uninterruptedly. And I will teach this eternal knowledge to my mother, and she also will attain liberation. So Kardama Muni now leaves for the forest because he's gone to do his tapasya to take on the renounced order of life. So now comes sage Kapila, the son of Devahuti. So after her husband departs, Devahuti stays with her son on the banks of that Bindu Sarovar. And one day she asks the Lord to bestow her with knowledge. So for that, I'm going to come to Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3. Canto 3 is where you will find the details of this pastime. Of course, Canto 3 also talks about other pastimes. There is a meeting happening between Vidura and Maitreya Rishi. They are having a conversation between themselves. And like that, they are remembering Lord Krishna. When two devotees get together, what are they going to do? They are only going to keep talking about the Lord. That's what devotees do. They congregate to talk about the Lord, to speak about the Lord, to hear about the Lord. And like this, they are experiencing bliss. Krishna himself says that in the Chatushloka Gita in chapter 10. They're remembering the Lord. They're also thinking about all the pastimes that the Lord performed in Vrindavan when he was a child. So then there is discussion about the universal form of the Lord. Vidura is asking questions of Maitreya Rishi. Our entire scriptures is based on question-answer format. Then there is a description of how Brahma appears from the lotus, emanating from Garbhodakshaya Vishnu, and how the planetary systems are actually in that stem of that lotus. The 14 planetary systems are all inside that lotus stem. How Brahma prays before he can take up the process of Nisarga, which is called secondary creation, how he actually creates everything, how time functions across the universe, how he creates the Kumaras. They don't listen to their father when he tells them you should get married. They say no, 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 marriage is not for us. How Varahadev appears, how Diti somehow convinces her husband Kashyapa Muni to procreate at the wrong time of the day, resulting in two horrendous sons called Hiranyaksha and Hiranyakashipu. There is a description of the spiritual world where the Lord resides. Then there is a discussion about the two doorkeepers of Vaikuntha, Jaya and Vijaya, who were actually cursed by the four Kumaras. How the Lord comes and destroys Hiranyaksha, who was disturbing the entire planetary systems through his intense tapas, and the actual killing of the demon Hiranyaksha. So the conversation is continuing between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. Later on, Swayambhuva Manu comes and has this conversation with Kardama Muni. He offers his daughter Devahuti's hand in marriage. Kardama Muni accepts. After serving him for many, many years, Kardama Muni says, time has come for me to go. Thank you for your services. I need to now focus on my spirituality. And then Devahuti laments. He says, no, no, no. How you can do that? You've not given me any children. So then they have the 9 girls, and later on, Kapila Rishi also appears. Kardama Muni exits, and now we're going to come to chapter 25, where the mother is going to ask her son to teach her philosophy. So it's a nested conversation, so I'm going to skip some of the other conversations. So, so Maitreya Rishi is relating this pastime. So there's a conversation happening between Maitreya Rishi and Vidura. So Maitreya Rishi is telling Vidura, when Kardama left for the forest, Lord Kapila stayed on the strand of the Bindu Sarovara to please his mother, Devahuti. When Kapila, who could show her the ultimate goal of the absolute truth, was sitting leisurely before her, Devahuti remembered the words Brahma had spoken to her, and she therefore began to question Kapila as follows. Devahuti said, I am very sick of the disturbance caused by my material senses, for because of the sense disturbance, my lord, I have fallen into the abyss of ignorance. Devahuti is not an ordinary personality. She already knows Shastra. But for your sake and my sake, she is going to ask some questions. So that when we come across this particular pastime of the Lord with his mother, we will learn something from it and try to apply it in our lives. So she says, your lordship is my only means of getting out of this darkest region of ignorance, because you are my transcendental eye, which by your mercy only I have attained after many, many births. So Devahuti is saying, somehow or the other, you have come as my son. You are the Supreme Lord yourself. So you have to dispel whatever ignorance that I have. So see, she knows that her son is the Supreme Lord. Of course, she was told by Lord Brahma as well as Kardama Muni. So she says, you are the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the origin and Supreme Lord of all living entities. You have arisen to disseminate the rays of the sun in order to dissipate the darkness of ignorance of the universe. Now be pleased, my Lord, to dispel my great delusion. Due to my feeling of false ego, I have been engaged by your Maya and have identified myself with the body and consequent bodily relations. So she's saying, I have forgotten that I'm spirit soul. I am identifying with my temporary ID card that I am your mother. You have to correct me. You have to dissipate this ignorance. And she tells her son, I have taken shelter of your lotus feet because you are the only person of whom to take shelter. You are the axe which can cut the tree of material existence. I therefore offer my obeisances unto you, who are the greatest of all transcendentalists, and I inquire from you as to the relationship between man and woman and between spirit and matter. Maitreya Rishi says, after hearing of his mother's uncontaminated desire for transcendental realization, the Lord thanked her within himself for her questions. So the Lord did not verbally say, thank you, mom, for asking these questions. Internally, he was thanking her for asking these questions. And with a smile on his face, the Lord said, the path, he starts explaining the path of transcendentalists who are interested in self realization. So the Lord is beginning his pravachan now for his mother. One on one Guru Shishya relationship now. The relationship is no longer of mother and son. The relationship has changed to Guru and disciple. So the Lord is going to begin to talk about the various yoga systems. And very patiently, the mother is listening to what the Lord is speaking about. So the Lord says, O most pious mother, I shall now explain unto you the ancient yoga system, which I explained formally to the great sages. It is serviceable and practical in every way. So the Lord is talking about the three modes of material nature, the three gunas, the concept of the false ego, where you think this body is mine, my family is mine, my relatives are mine, my child is mine. Actually, nothing belongs to you. So the Lord begins to speak the details of Sankhya philosophy. And in the next chapter, along the way, he's talking about the qualities of great devotees, right? Very, very similar to the Bhagavad Gita. Here the Lord is saying, engage constantly in chanting and hearing about me, the Supreme Personality of the Godhead. The sadhus do not suffer from material miseries because they are always filled with thoughts of my pastimes and activities. There is a similar shloka in the Bhagavad Gita, in the Chatushloka, in 10.10, where the Lord says, my devotees, when they get together, all they do is talk about me. And because they're talking about me, they're experiencing great bliss. And they're always thinking about my pastimes, my activities, what all I did. That's all. They never get tired of hearing my same pastimes again and again and again. Similarly, we don't get tired about hearing about Lord Krishna's pastimes, Lord Ram's pastimes. We can hear it again and again and again. Why? Because it is transcendental. Hearing it purifies our consciousness, purifies our hearts. We are directly present there with the Lord when we are hearing the pastimes of the Lord. The Lord is there with you as you're listening to his pastimes. So the Lord is saying, "O my mother, O virtuous lady, these are the qualities of great devotees who are free from all attachment. You must seek attachment to such holy men." What is the Lord saying? You should associate with other Vaishnavas. You should engage in sadhu sangha. You should go hang out with the right kind of people. Why? The Lord is explaining, for this counteracts the pernicious effects of material attachment. If you don't spend time with other devotees of the Lord, you will soon get contaminated because you will not have the strength to continue with your sadhana on your own. And therefore, devotee association is an important aspect of your sadhana. You can't sit and chant alone in your house. That's very nice. You have to be in the association of other devotees. And the Lord is telling you the benefits of being in the association of other devotees. If you are on your own, very soon you will lose your determination to practice your sadhana. Even if you're chanting, but you don't take the association of devotees, you will not progress on the path of spirituality. Although you will get the benefits of chanting, devotee association is an integral part of your sadhana. That means you must come and attend pravachan like this. Sometimes pravachan like this is digital, so we are in digital temple right now. But also you should take advantage of physical association of devotees, because that's where you will learn the seva bhav. So how nicely the Lord is instructing his mother. So Kapila Rishi is saying, in the association of pure devotees, discussion of the pastimes and activities of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is very pleasing and satisfying to the ear and the heart. By cultivating such knowledge, one gradually becomes advanced on the path of liberation, and therefore he is freed and his attraction becomes fixed. So Kardama Rishi, Kapila Rishi is saying, when you hear about the Lord, you become even more attracted to the Lord. And slowly your attraction for material things will go down. And then what the Lord is saying? Then real devotion and devotional service begin. Which means bhakti yoga cannot be performed alone. It has to be performed in groups like this. 42 of us are here, listening to this beautiful explanation by the Lord to his own mother. So he's giving instructions to his mother. Thus, consciously engaged in devotional service in the association of devotees, a person gains distaste for sense gratification, both in this world and in the next. By constantly thinking about the activities of the Lord, this process of Krishna consciousness is the easiest process of mystic power. When one is actually situated on that path of devotional service, he is able to control the mind. So the Lord also speaks about dhyana yoga to his mother. And he tells her how this meditation process should begin at the lotus feet. Remember yesterday when we were talking about Queen Kunti, we said when she prays, she begins at the navel of the Lord. Normally, devotees always begin at the lotus feet. And the Lord is explaining to his mother how she should take, how devotees should take darshan. When we go to the temple, when we are seeing the deity forms of the Lord, we should begin our darshan with the lotus feet. Slowly we should come to his thighs, then to his waist, then to his chest, then to his neck, then to his arms, then to his face. So when we take darshan, we should start bottom up. That's the proper way of taking darshan of Lord Vishnu. So here he is talking about bhakti yoga. But the Lord also speaks to his mother about dhyana yoga and also jnana yoga. So the Lord is saying Through devotional service, what is the word the Lord is using? Easiest process of mystic power. Through dhyana yoga also you can get mystic power. But through bhakti yoga, you can make very fast progress on the spiritual path. Same instruction the Lord is giving again. Your mind should always be fixed in devotional service. Because when you do devotional service, you're taking personal association with me. Right? So like this, then Devahuti will ask questions of her son. So Devahuti is asking, what kind of devotional service is worth developing and practicing to help me easily and immediately attain the service of your lotus feet? So the mother is asking the son, what kind of bhakti should I perform so I have an opportunity to serve your lotus feet? And she says, the mystic yoga system, as you have explained, aims at the Supreme Personality of Godhead and is meant for completely ending material existence. Please let me know the nature of that yoga system. How many ways are there by which one can understand in truth that sublime yoga? My dear son Kapila, after all, I am a woman. As I was mentioning yesterday, even though these women are exalted devotees, they always put themselves in a humble position. I'm a woman. It's very difficult for me to understand the absolute truth because my intelligence is not very great. But if you will kindly explain it to me, even though I'm not very intelligent, I can understand it and thereby feel transcendental happiness. So Devahuti is saying, even by hearing this from you, I'm going to experience bliss. I may not understand everything. So Maitreya Rishi, who's speaking to Vidura, says, after hearing the statement of his mother Kapila, could understand her purpose. And he became compassionate towards her because of being born of her body. He described the Sankhya system of philosophy, which is a combination of devotional service and mystic realization, as received by disciplic succession. So, like this, the conversation between the Lord and his mother continues for a couple of chapters. We don't have time to go through all those chapters. So the Sankhya philosophy is explaining the cosmos and the material nature, the elements of material nature. So after that, the Lord is going to talk about how to execute devotional service. In this particular chapter, the Lord is going to talk about how all of us must perform our duties and responsibilities. We should never give up our duties and responsibilities. How we should develop these Brahmanical qualities. Remember, we said in the first session, the relevance of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says all of us have to become intelligent. And intelligent means Brahmana. Brahmana means Brahmanical qualities, truthfulness, non-violence. Right? Krishna says, or the Lord says, be satisfied with whatever I give you. Don't overextend yourself, trying to chase for one more dollar, one more rupee, 1 lakh more rupee, 1 crore more rupee. Like this, there's never ending. And he begins to speak about dhyana yoga here, how one must observe silence, how one must learn the pranayama process, how one must go to the pratyahara process of withdrawing the senses from the sense objects. Then begin the process of dhyana, dharana, and finally reach samadhi. So the Lord is telling his mother all these details, fixing the vital air and the mind in one of the 6 circles of the vital air circulation within the body, thus concentrating one's mind on the transcendental pastimes of the Supreme Personality of Godhead is called Samadhi or Samadhana of the mind. So Krishna is talking about how to control the mind through a different process. Kapila Muni has already described that you can control your mind very easily by performing Bhakti Yoga. But if you are not interested in Bhakti Yoga, you want to do Dhyana Yoga, then the Lord is describing that this is a little tougher process. So you have to be very, very disciplined and fixed up to follow through. So like this, Devahuti is patiently listening to her son, asking questions along the way. And after imparting this knowledge to his mother, Kapila Rishi leaves home to travel the northwest side of India, propagating this knowledge. So the Lord travels to the Himalayas and then comes to the Delta region where the Ganges is. And there, he stays there to deliver conditioned souls. And the Bhagavatam says that whoever hears the story of Kapila and his teachings, they will all automatically become devotees of Lord Krishna. Hari Bol. So there is benefit to hearing. So if you've been hearing attentively, the benediction is that you will all become devotees of Krishna. So what happens to the mother? So after Kapiladeva leaves this earthly planet and goes back to the spiritual world, what happens is that there is a place called the Kapila Vaikunta. So when Mother Devahuti is ready to leave her body, she goes and joins her son in this place called Kapila Vaikunta, where she meets her son, the Supreme Lord, and she resides there eternally, enjoying the transcendental company of her transcendental son, Kapila. So just by reading a few of these shlokas, you can understand the position of Devahuti. Women were no less than men in Vedic culture. They were very intelligent, they were very interested in philosophy, and they were ready to follow the instructions of their husband or their son in this case. Mother Devahuti ki jai, Grantraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. With that, we're going to come to Jivatma, because Devahuti has understood the difference between matter and spirit. So it makes sense for us to focus on what is the spirit, this Jivatma. So today we're going to go through the slides very quickly. I have very few slides and we'll cover it very quickly. Before we begin, let's offer our most humble obeisances to His Divine Grace, Srila A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. And let's recite the Pranati mantra before we dive into the Bhagavad Gita. Nama Om Vishnupadaya Krishna Prishtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swamin Iti Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Paschat Deshatarine Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasadi Gauravakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So today we're going to dive into the topic of the soul. Krishna talks about the soul in the second chapter, and the characteristics of the soul, the difference between the body and the soul, the nature of the soul, the fact that we all undergo reincarnation, which means we keep changing bodies until we put a stop to it. But only we can put a stop to it. And what is Arjuna's dilemma and how is that dilemma resolved? In the Bhagavad Gita will be the last slide. What is the benefit of knowing that you are the spirit soul? When you realize that your body is temporary, your material assets are temporary, your family members are temporary, everything is temporary, then you will begin to question what is the purpose of life? Why am I getting myself into all kinds of anxieties when I know that all of this will end with this life, and in my next life I'm just going to go and occupy another body and complete that cycle again? So when you realize that your real ID card is that you are a spirit soul, and your duties and if you have an ID card, you have a job description, right? Your job description says you have to serve Krishna, and that's your only job description. When you really recognize this truth, then none of the other things that are happening around you will impact you in any negative way, because you will be situated on the transcendental platform. Even though there are disturbances by sometimes your own family members, you are situated in that divine platform of being connected to the Supreme Lord, because you have begun your journey of surrender by taking shelter of Krishna. So by practicing Bhakti Yoga, you will develop and accumulate your divine assets. Your material assets you have to leave behind at the time of death. It doesn't matter what you may think, what power you may have. It doesn't matter. You can be Ambani, but Ambani, Kumbani doesn't matter. Your wealth, you have to leave behind. Your children, you have to leave behind. So instead of focusing on material assets, we should be focusing on acquiring divine assets, because it's those assets that are actually going to help you go back to Krishna. When you develop and nurture the divinity within you, then obviously it will free you up from your demoniac side. Krishna tells us in the Bhagavad Gita in the 16th chapter, each of us have 6 demoniac qualities. What are they? It's pride, arrogance, conceit, anger, harshness, and ignorance. Krishna calls these 6 qualities to be demoniac. They prevent us from connecting to Him. So if you are free from your demoniac nature, then you're also free from fear. There's no more fear in you because you're connected to Krishna. If you're connected to Krishna, how can you be fearful? And when you're connected to Krishna, you will stop complaining. What's there to complain about? You have Krishna in your life. And therefore, all this illusion that, I have to accumulate so much wealth, I have to be very famous, I have to be very beautiful, I have to maintain my beauty, all of this illusion will disappear. And then as you develop your inner self, you will begin to see that everybody around you is also suffering just like you. Everybody is a Jivatma. Everybody is trapped in their body and they are suffering. And therefore, compassion within you will grow towards other Jivatmas. See, when you're connected to the Lord, how can hatred grow? When you're connected to the Lord and you deepen your connection to the Lord, there is only one thing that is going to come to the surface. It's your compassion, your kindness, your mercy towards other Jivatmas. and therefore you develop a positive outlook on life. We've already talked to you about the benefits of mantra meditation. Ultimately, you'll recognize that nothing belongs to you. Your body doesn't belong to you. Your body belongs to Krishna, and your body should be used to serve Krishna. Therefore, you will use the Lord's resources in the right way. I think perhaps it was Mahatma Gandhi who said this. There is enough for everyone's need on this planet Earth. So everybody's need can be met. Nobody needs to be poor. Nobody needs to go hungry. The Lord has supplied us with sufficient to take care of all of his jivas. The Lord is not cruel. After sending to jail, he's feeding you once a week. But it is because of our greed, we've become disconnected from the Lord, and there is so much inequality in life. Because a few people, because of their greed, they deprive somebody else of their rightful property. Because the Lord is our Father, we have a right to his property. But we should only take as much as is necessary to maintain this body. The Ishopanishad says that anybody who takes more than what is necessary, they are a thief. They are stealing from the Lord. Because the Lord has supplied all for all the Jivatmas in every single universe. There is no lack of resources. It's just that in this modern lifetime, greed has created so much inequality. So Gandhi said, there is enough to meet everybody's need, but there is not enough to meet one man's greed. Even if one man is greedy, no matter how much you give him, he will always have more desires. But there is adequate resources given by the Lord to take care of us very nicely. So here are some famous personalities. You can see their adult pictures here. Now, the purpose of this is to demonstrate to you that the body keeps changing, but the soul stays constant. As long as the soul is occupying the body is going to undergo 6 types of changes. What are those 6 types of changes? First is birth, then is growth, then is maintenance, then is producing some byproducts, which is having children, etc. Then the body begins to dwindle, then the body dies. The soul exits the body. So everybody, not just human beings, a butterfly goes through this, a tree goes through this, an animal goes through this, a bacteria goes through this. The cycle is the same. These 6 changes are the same for every jiva. So these same famous personalities, you see their childhood pictures. So the top row is Albert Einstein. The middle row is Queen Elizabeth. And the bottom row is Roger Federer, the tennis player. But because you've seen their current bodies, you may not recognize their childhood form because they look different. So you can see, as long as the soul is occupying a body, the body will always undergo change constantly. As a matter of fact, science says that every cell in our body is replaced once in 7 years. Imagine once in 7 years, you get a brand new body and you don't even know it. So here is Nelson Mandela on the top row. In the middle is Mother Teresa. On the bottom is President Barack Obama. On the top here is Oprah Winfrey. In the middle is A.R. Rahman. And at the bottom is Steve Jobs, the founder of Apple. So We can all agree, definitely the bodies have undergone change. Our looks change, our demeanor changes, our personality changes, our behavior changes. What is the one thing that stayed constant? The soul. The soul does not undergo those 6 changes that we talked about. But because the soul is present, the body undergoes these changes. So through this, you can understand that the soul is eternal, it is permanent, and the body is temporary. So, what are the 4 problems of human life? The 4 problems are birth, death, old age, disease. So Krishna is telling Arjuna in chapter 8, shloka number 16, Abrahma bhuvana lokaha punaravartinorjuna mam upetyatu kaunteya punarjanmana vidyate. What is Krishna saying? From the highest planet in the material world down to the lowest. Do you know what is the highest planet? It is Satyaloka, where Lord Brahma resides. Do you know what is the lowest planet? It is called Patala, where Jivatmas are sent for severe punishment. Krishna is saying, from Brahma's planet to the lowest planet, in these 14 planetary systems, every planet is a place of misery because repeated birth and death take place. And then Krishna is tempting you by telling you, but one who comes to my abode, O son of Kunti, never takes birth again. So Krishna is telling you, come back home to me. What are you doing playing in this playground? How long will you play? Sometimes when children play on the playground, the mothers will go out and say, come back home. It's time to do your homework. Come back home. It's time to, go to bed. The child will always protest. No, 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 a little bit more time, I want to play. So Krishna has given us many, many opportunities to come back home. He's come knocking on our door many, many times. We've always told him, not now, Krishna, I'm busy. Not now, Krishna, I'm too young. Not now, Krishna, I'm married, I have to take care of my husband. Not now, Krishna, I have children to take care of. Not now, Krishna, I have parents to take care of. Like this, not now, Krishna, not now, Krishna. It is our misfortune that we didn't take advantage of Krishna's mercy earlier. But it is our greatest fortune that all of you are here hearing this message so that you can make a change in your life. Right? So Krishna is saying even Brahma has to die. Brahma is not eternal because he is also a Jivatma. So this is the problem with life. Krishna is saying if you are intelligent, you will make the right choices. So now Krishna is going to describe the spirit soul in chapter 2. So in this image, if somebody were to get into a car accident, we will always rescue the driver. We will not rescue the car, no matter how expensive the car may be. Because that life inside that vehicle is far more precious than the most expensive vehicle on this planet. Similarly, we have a precious life in this human form. If we are only polishing the material body by spending lakhs and lakhs of rupees on this body and ignoring the soul, which is the bird in this cage, then that's quite stupid. Therefore, Krishna, multiple times in the Bhagavad Gita says, those who are focused on the body and body alone are not very intelligent. As a matter of fact, he calls them moodha, fools. So I'm sure none of us fall in that category because we are here reading and hearing from the scripture. So Krishna is telling Arjuna in shloka 23, Nainam chindanti shastrani, nainam dahati pavakaha, na chainam kledayantyapo, na shoshayati marutaha. Krishna is saying the soul can never be cut to pieces by any weapon, nor burned by fire, nor moistened by water, nor withered by the wind. The soul is eternal. So how do you understand the difference between matter and spirit? As Devahuti was asking a son, Kapila Rishi, Krishna says, Dehinosmin yatha dehe kaumaram yauvanam jara tatha dehantara praptihi dhirastatra na muhyati. Krishna saying, as the embodied soul continuously passes in this body from boyhood to youth to old age, the soul similarly passes into another body at death. A sober person is not bewildered by such a change. It's like as if Krishna is saying, Arjuna, have you not observed life around you? All of this happens all around you all the time, with your family members, with other Jivatmas, with plants, with trees. This is happening constantly. This change is going on and on and on. Why should you be bewildered? Because all the souls that you are thinking about, because of your attachment on the bodily platform, you are thinking that's my brother, that's my guru, that's my grandfather, they're my in-laws. Don't worry, because the soul is going to take a new body. So what happens at the time of death? At the time of death, we have to give up this gross body, the physical body that we can see, which is made of the Panchabhuta, earth, water, air, fire, and ether. This is called the Sthula Sharira. And the Sthula Sharira, you have to give up at the time of death. But what is remaining is one more body called the subtle body, which is made up of your mind, intelligence, and false ego. So this subtle body keeps traveling with the soul until the soul occupies a new physical body. This will keep going on. That's why you have to change your desires. If your desires are always material, Krishna is compelled to respond to your prayers, you see. There are certain prayers that Krishna responds to with love. And there are certain prayers that Krishna responds to with reluctance. When the Lord hears you asking him for service at his lotus feet, he responds with love. When the Lord hears you asking for a BMW, he responds to you with reluctance. He knows the BMW is not going to help you spiritually. Therefore, the Lord is always pleased when you ask him for something eternal, for something spiritual that helps you connect to him. Krishna very quickly responds to those prayers. Very reluctantly, he will agree to other things. Because he is our father, he knows that that BMW is separating you from him. Therefore, he is reluctant. So Krishna is asking, how many times are you going to go through this cycle? We already discussed yesterday. There are 84 different types of bodies that you can occupy. So if you want to go back to Krishna's house, which is also your house, your eternal home, then you have to give up the subtle body also. The only thing that is remaining is your soul in its original position as Satchidananda. The Lord is Satchidananda. The spirit soul is also Satchidananda. So the spirit soul is searching for that happiness. So ultimately, to go back home, you have to give up your physical body and your subtle body. And that is called liberation. So Krishna describes many facets of the soul, that the soul will always remain individual. It will not merge with the Supreme Lord. The Supreme Lord will maintain his individual identity, and the individual soul will also maintain their individual identity. even when they go back to the spiritual. So you will always be different from Krishna. You will maintain your individuality. Krishna will maintain his supreme individuality. The soul does not have a date of birth. It does not have a date of death. It is indestructible. It cannot be measured. It cannot be cut, burnt, dried, or impacted with water. Although the Lord says the soul is invisible, it is invisible to the physical eyes. It is visible to a self-realized soul. It is because of the presence of the soul you are experiencing what you are experiencing. Pleasure and pain, heat and cool weather. All these dualities you are experiencing because you're in contact with Prakriti. And the soul is always searching for God because the soul is Satchidananda. And the soul gets its qualities from the Lord because we are our Lord's children. So we get the qualities from our Father. Our Father is Satchidananda, therefore we are also Satchidananda. It's just that we've forgotten because we've come and occupied this body. So it is said the size of the soul is 1/10,000th the tip of a hair. So if you pluck out your hair, one strand of hair, you take one tip and cut it into 100 pieces. Take one of those 100 pieces and cut that one piece into another 100 pieces. That one piece is the size of the soul. The symptom of the soul is that it seeks for spiritual growth and it experiences consciousness. So Krishna talks about how the soul keeps changing bodies. So he says, Jatasya hidruvo mrityuhu dhruvam janma mritasya cha tasmada pariharyerthe natvam shochitam arhasi. Krishna is saying, if you've taken birth, death is certain. If you've died, birth is certain. Therefore, in the unavoidable discharge of your duty, you should not lament. Remember, Arjuna has said, how can I kill my own family members? Krishna is saying it's your duty, you have to do it. So stop complaining that your life has become very difficult all of a sudden. You have all these mental blocks. Focus on doing your duty. So we said there are 84 lakh different types of bodies you can take. There are 9 lakh species in water. There are 20 lakh different species of trees and plants. There are 11 lakh species of insects and reptiles. There are 10 lakh species of birds, 30 lakh of four-legged animals, and only 4 lakh different types of human beings. Therefore, the human birth is very, very rare. So Krishna is going to say, if you're intelligent, you will choose your body wisely. You will want to be in a human form because it's only in a human form that you can pursue the path of spirituality and come back to it. But since the subtle body is traveling with the soul, all your desires are traveling with you, your karma is traveling with you, Krishna is saying that is going to determine the next body. So Krishna is asking us to stop this madness, to wake up. So this is the last slide. So what was Arjuna's dilemma? He was identifying with his body. As we said, on the bodily platform, you'll have different ID cards. Mother, son, sister, cousins, this, that, and the other. Arjuna had forgotten that he was a spirit soul and his job was to serve the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is telling Arjuna, you have to protect dharma. The Kauravas are sinful, and death is the most perfect punishment for sinful people because it puts an end to their sinful activities and their sinful reactions also. Because in their next life, maybe by the mercy of the Supreme Lord, they'll come in contact with devotees and then they are under Krishna's protection. So sometimes death is necessary to put a stop to another person's adharmic activities, because you stop them from committing more and more sins and making their situation more and more worse in their future lives. Obviously, Arjuna is asking, but why is death acceptable? I love them. I care about them. I can't live without them. So, in the first chapter, Arjuna was arguing. By the time the Bhagavad Gita has ended, he has surrendered to Krishna. Yes, you're my boss. Whatever you've said, I've accepted. I will do exactly as you say. So Arjuna goes from arguing to being submissive. Submissive means you're ready to listen. You're ready to follow instructions. A devotee's life is established by the level of their submission to senior devotees, to Guru, to Acharya, to the Supreme Lord. So Krishna is going to test our level of submissiveness, not after we go to the spiritual world. You have to prove to Krishna that you can be a humble servant here and now, that you can follow instructions from acharyas. So you have to practice that submissiveness here, because when you go to the spiritual world, you have to know that you will never be the boss. You will always be in servant position, and you have to be ready for that. So Arjuna's conflict was twofold: Kula Dharma or Kshatriya Dharma. I think somebody asked a question last night about sometimes two right things come in conflict with each other. Then how do you choose? So here, should Arjuna protect his family or should he protect the kingdom? Should he protect Dharma or should he protect his family members by not killing them? And the answer is obvious. Krishna says you have to protect the kingdom, because if you protect your family, the kingdom itself will be wiped out. There will be no society. Everything will be chaos. There has to be order. There has to be rules and regulations. There has to be dharma. So what does Krishna do very expertly? In the second chapter alone, which is considered to be the summary of the entire Bhagavad Gita, Krishna talks about all the yogas. And Krishna is saying, if you use this lens, you should come to the same conclusion. If you use the Karma Yoga lens, you should come to the same conclusion, which is the conclusion will always be you have to fight. You will not come to a different conclusion. So if you use Jnana Yoga says matter is different from spirit. Spirit is eternal, matter is temporary. Therefore, there is no death for the soul. So continue fighting, because that soul will go occupy a new body. So if you know that the soul will get on a new body, why are you so complicated? Don't complicate life. Yes, you have attachments, but at some point you have to give it up. Let us say you have a lot of material desires. Then Krishna argues, every one of us have to work for a living. The Kshatriya's job is to consolidate kingdom and provide good governance. As part of that, sometimes you have to fight battles. And when you win a battle, you'll enjoy. You'll enjoy the riches. So if you look at it through the lens of Karma Kanda, Krishna says, you will come to the conclusion you have to fight. You have no other option. If you look at it from Nishkama Karma Yoga perspective, which is Buddhi Yoga here, this Buddhi Yoga or Nishkama Karma Yoga says all of us have to do our duties, but there are some of us who come to the platform that we're not attached to the results. Whether we win or lose, we don't care. We just care that we should perform our duty. Well, if you look at it from that lens, just perform your duty. Don't worry whether you are going to get killed or they are going to get killed. Doesn't matter. But performing your duty is important. Don't worry about the results. Then Krishna says, if you look at it from a perspective of Bhakti Yoga, you have to fight because I am instructing you to fight. See, in a servant-master relationship, the master will order, the servant has to follow the orders. He cannot question the master. That is surrender, right? That is submissiveness. So Krishna says you will make very fast progress when you follow my instructions. I am telling you to fight. And when you fight, you will become fixed up in Krishna consciousness. So Krishna is saying, whichever angle you look at it from, Arjuna, the conclusion is the same. You have to fight. Therefore, having this kind of spiritual vision leads to material victory, which means if Arjuna fights and wins, he will enjoy the kingdom. If Arjuna fights and dies, he will still enjoy because Krishna will send his soul to the heavenly planets where he can enjoy all kinds of riches. So if he wins, he wins. If he loses, he wins. But then Krishna says, actually, I don't want my devotees to do this kind of profit loss calculation. I want my devotees to do their duty because the spiritual vision will also lead to spiritual victory. What is that spiritual victory? By doing your duty, you're purifying yourself and ultimately you will go back to Krishna. But how do you know what is your duty if you don't know what is your ID card? So to determine your activity, you first need to determine what is your ID. Your ID here is your spirit soul, you're not this body. So all your duties should be prioritized on the spiritual platform. It's not that Krishna is saying you give up all your material responsibilities. No, never. Krishna says, I come first, then your family. So between husband and wife, Krishna should be in the center. Then they cannot fight with each other. Right? How can you fight when Krishna is the head of the household? If Krishna is the master in your household, how can a husband and wife get into fights and arguments? How can children be fighting when the Supreme Lord is there? So our consciousness determines how we see the world, how we see ourselves. When we elevate our consciousness, we will not be bothered by all the other activities around us. So Krishna is saying, Arjuna, create a better reality for yourself by simply elevating your consciousness. You will understand what is actually important in life. And you will learn to tolerate everything else that happens to you. Be patient. Don't be anxious. Follow my instructions. Tolerate. Pretty soon, I will come to collect you. So with that, we conclude today's chapter.